Hey guys, and welcome back to the Actually Digest live at Scaling New Heights. I'm actually joined by Meryl, who I've known for a few years over social media, and we've met a couple of times. This is our first time, I think, having a big, proper conversation about the two companies that I know she works with, being Ninja and TeamUp. So, Meryl, I'll let you start by introducing yourself. Obviously, by the accent, people realise you're not from the States. So, kindly give us a brief overview of who you are, how you ended up being here this week, and then we'll deep dive into everything else from there.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks for having me. So I'm a chartered accountant, which is like a CPA in the US. So 11 years ago, I started a firm called Bean Ninjas. It was when Xero was early. We were a 100% Xero firm, and we expanded from Australia to the US and UK. And about 6 years in, I'd been focused on building a team and having leaders come through the firm. So I was able to reduce my hours down to 1 to 2 days a week. And then for a couple of years, I was looking at, well, what do I know? What do I do next? I love the accounting industry. Are there problems to solve? Are there problems to solve that I could help with? And a friend of mine who ran a competitor to Bean Ninjas in the e-commerce accounting space had started a business. It wasn't called TeamUp back then. In fact, it had no name, and it was part of his bookkeeping business. Okay. But it was helping firms to recruit accountants and bookkeepers in the Philippines in what we considered the right way. Ethical hiring, solving or not doing it in the way where we previously had some bad experiences. So I invested in that business, and then a year later I came on as a co-founder. So I'm here in the US as a vendor, first time having a booth at an accounting conference.
But just to kind of rewind on that a little bit, we can go into everything else. You are from Australia.
Yes.
You started in the accounting firm, and you still have that today, and that's still growing to straight strength. But Bean Ninjas is now Australia, US, and UK. That's how much it's grown. Yeah. So how is that journey? How is that different for you? You know, suddenly having an accounting firm in Australia. Don't get me wrong, the technology is there to grow, but accountants can be different. There can be different terminology. They can obviously different of all sorts. How was that growth for you? How did that come about, and how was that journey to do that?
So we originally wanted the option to be an international firm. So when we picked the name, part of the criteria was we wanted a .com domain. So that actually shaped some of the naming process. So when we were choosing the name, we were going through the 7-day startup methodology, which is like lean startup, which is tech, and this is a service business. And it was just pick a name, build a website, and get a customer in a week. And so that was part of that. The thought process when the firm was started was .com domain and global potential. And then I thought it would be years in, but we were early with when Stripe and PayPal were new. And so we knew how to do the bookkeeping for that. So we got a lot of referrals for US and UK based businesses.
And was that doing it all from Australia at the time? So
all from Australia.
So in Australia at the time.
Everyone was in Australia. Yeah. And we had referrals. And then I thought, okay, we've got enough interest that I could take a risk, get insurance in the US and hire a US CPA. Let's try it. And so we ran that experiment, and it went well. And then something similar happened in the UK, where there was enough interest that I felt like we could do the same thing, hire somebody, get insurance, and just test it and see what are these markets like. So we weren't providing tax services. We were just providing bookkeeping, which is less tax and country specific.
And how is that going now? So how big are the teams kind of in Australia, US and UK? Is that still growing well for you guys?
Yeah. So I'd say so the early years we grew very fast, and I'd say it's more of a steady business now where we do grow, but it's not as aggressive. So the Australian part of Bean Ninjas joined a larger firm called Air Accounting a couple of years ago for a strategic partnership. And then so their team is 40, and then Bean Ninjas US and UK is about 25 people.
And they're not with any partnerships, so they're kind of on their own, the UK and US in that front.
They're separate entities. So we have, we operate. It was all out of the Australian entity to begin with, but as we expanded, then we actually set up in the different countries.
With talent shortages continuing to challenge firms, the .HQ helps your business scale through dedicated offshore professionals who work exclusively for you. From accounting and bookkeeping to audit and admin, Dot's offshore support gives you the capacity, consistency, and confidence to grow.
And that's really interesting. So I kind of lead on, I guess, then to TeamUp, and the whole vision behind it. Obviously, I'd love to speak more about the kind of the ethical side as well. But thinking more from the tech stack, is that how really helped? Obviously, you're running the accounting firm. You're then growing that between 3 countries, which the tech stack probably stayed similar, but had little tweaks, I'm guessing, depending what country you're in.
Yes.
How did that happen then with TeamUp, and how do you bring that into the team over there? Because I guess accounting firms want different tech stacks. Or do you have a tech stack you stick with and try and bring firms onto? How does that work for you?
Yeah, so with Ninjas, because we were one firm originally that was working in different regions, we had our core tech stack. So we were 100% Xero. We had our practice management tool at the time. We're on Carbon now. We weren't at the beginning.
Yeah.
We wanted to work remotely. We never had a in-person culture. And so the tech stack was related to that. So G Suite, Slack, using those type of tools. And so that helped with working with people from anywhere in the world. So, and then with TeamUp, we use a similar type of approach where we're a remote team and we're using cloud-based tools.
Yeah. So how is that then? Obviously, you've got a team of, how big's the team in the Philippines then? Sorry, just to ask that, because obviously you're
in the firm.
Yeah. In TeamUp, sorry, how big's the team in the Philippines that you've got? Because I guess obviously you can use the right terminology here, outsourcing, offshoring, which is right for TeamUp. How do you describe it?
So we're in the offshoring category.
Yeah.
We call ourselves recruiters.
Recruiters, okay.
So, I might just quickly explain that.
Yeah, please, yeah.
So I'd say outsourcing is if you had 100 tax returns, you might send that to India and you wouldn't choose which person did it or how they did it, but you'd get that result back. Whereas offshoring, this is my definition.
Yeah.
Someone else might think something different. Offshoring is if you're hiring a person. So you might hire through a BPO a person and pay a monthly fee and you kind of rent that person.
Yep.
And then we're recruiters. So we'll hire a specific person for your team culture with 2 years US tax experience, if that's what you want. And then that person is your team member and you don't pay us monthly ongoing fees for that. So that person keeps all of their salary.
Yeah. So I approach you and we're looking for extend our team. We want someone like you say 2 years tax experience in the US. You go and recruit them from me in the Philippines. And then who manages that person on a monthly basis in respect of the normalness of employment? Is that done by you guys, or is it all then on the accounting firm that takes that on?
So in terms of things like onboarding then performance management, that would be the accounting firm.
Yep.
And we encourage them to build your own team. So have an integrated global team, not a back office team, and have team members like we were able to do at Ninjas, where we brought our Philippines team into our global team.
Yep.
And they're trained on our culture. We're proud that they can represent our brand to clients through email, on calls. And so I find if you do that and you build an integrated team, you can do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what is the power of doing that in the respect of if that person wants to leave or doesn't feel part of the team, does that affect you? Like, why do it that way rather than kind of offshoring or outsourcing to you? Why is that important to you?
Yeah, I think that if you've got somebody on your team and you care about them, then you can provide things like career progression.
Yeah.
So you've got that accountant with 2 years US tax experience and they want to be a manager and a people leader. Then you can create that opportunity. But if you have a middleman or a BPO staffing company between you and that person, then it's another party that's involved. That means you can't have as close a relationship, or you've got to check with them.
Yeah.
And they get a pay rise. You want to move them in this direction, or they want to move cities.
Yeah.
Can they do that? And so if you have that direct relationship, then you're able to create those opportunities.
So how have you managed to build that catalog then? Obviously, you must have a catalog of good people in the Philippines that could take on different roles, or have different level experiences, or etc. So how did you build that, and what have you got in place right now to keep evolving that as well to make sure it keeps up with demand?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think we've placed about 500 accountants in the Philippines so far over the last 3 years. And usually I suppose we've got 2 customers. We've got the accounting firms, and then we also have the accountants in the Philippines.
Yeah.
So we have been focusing on building a brand in the Philippines of how do we attract top accountants.
Yeah.
So I think we've got about 40,000 LinkedIn connections of accountants in the Philippines, and we're getting known as, if you want to work remotely, so from your home, instead of having to do a big commute every day, and you want to work for a firm that you're not just going to be back office, you'll be part of their team culture and there'll be career progression. come to TeamUp and we will place you with a firm that's going to care about you and look after you.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the vetting process too, that we want to make sure that we're working with US firms that are going to treat their people like that. And we provide training on that to help. That helps with retention, which is what we want.
So I guess you need vetting from both sides there as
Yeah.
well, because obviously you need the vetting, say the US firms or
Mhm.
someone a US client treats is right and lines up with your values. But I guess also in the Philippines, where you need to make sure that they can do what they say they can do, can line up with the values and have that as well. So you have so that's where you sit in the middle to almost make sure their values line up and you can bring them these clients, right?
Exactly. So we're vetting both sides and then we're trying to find a match. And so, yeah, to answer that question, in the Philippines, we're really focused on how do we build a brand where accountants know, oh, we want to come and get placed by TeamUp.
And then I guess from that as well, you must have some challenges in the Philippines that we don't even think about here in the respect of infrastructure of Wi-Fi power, kind of technology, technology themselves to work off. And how's that challenge been? Because it must be, as we're so used to, like Australia, UK, and obviously US, we're so used to things just working, right? Having power, having Wi-Fi. How has that challenge been, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, so that's something that we need to be aware of in the vetting process, because there might be a power outage. So we'll ask, well, what's your backup plan? Do you have a backup generator? Let's test the internet. If you're going to be working from home, then let's run an internet speed test. We need to make sure that you can work effectively. And so a lot of these very capable people, so they have sorted out those things. Yeah. But sometimes, I remember when we were hiring, this is a bean engine example. Yeah. But twice a guy wanted to work for us, but twice he didn't have the right setup, internet speed too slow, just had to say, look, you won't be able to effectively work for us at the moment. And then he saved up, got good internet, and then we're able to hire him.
And I was also thinking that I guess the power of doing it your way as well, from what I can see, is if I'm an accounting firm, I dictate the tech stack that I want.
Yes, absolutely.
The person, the employee I get in the Philippines or employees to use, and the tech stack they're using. And then so I guess that's also then, if I'm the accountant, that's my responsibility to train them up and make sure they can use that. Or how does that sit?
It is, yes. Yeah. And again, I think that's an advantage. It might not be for everybody though. No. So some firms might not want to invest in that training, and that's okay. There's particularly outsourcing can solve that problem for you. Yeah. But if you do want people that will follow your processes, use your workflows, and also can be client facing, then I think you need to invest in training. And I believe in that. So that's something that we do at our firm, and I think it's worth it.
Amazing. And I think one of the things I wanted to touch on is more and more I can see that outsourcing, offshoring, or recruiting, as you call it, out there, out anywhere, is becoming more and more popular. Yes. But also I think there is also sometimes a fear among it as well. How do you meet that challenge, and how do you have them conversations with people? I feel if we're maybe a bit more used to that in the UK and Australia, so I feel like US can be an even harder conversation to be had, and you're probably experiencing that while you're here now. But how do you have that conversation, and what's that bit of advice you're giving kind of American, US firms, any firms, but US firms at the moment when talking about it?
So you're right, and it has come up more here than it has in Australia. Yeah. But I think it's a common concern for accountants. What about security? I've got client information. How do I make sure that nothing's going to happen with that? Is there going to be fraud? And so part of it, we talk about the vetting process. So in the same way you'd vet an American team member, let's do background checks, reference checks. So that's part of the process. Also having good controls. Yep. So whether you've got somebody in the Philippines or in Ohio or California, your firm would have, or they should have, processes around cybersecurity and passwords. And so if you have good controls around that, so are you managing things like logins, who has access to what, that can prevent a lot of problems. But also in the same way you build trust with a team member in the UK or in the US, and then gradually give more access to things. I think that approach works in the Philippines. But generally we say, if you've got a remote team, it doesn't matter where they are. They could be in the Philippines, they could be in India, they could be in Australia. And if you've got the right systems in place and processes, then you'll be protected. But there's always some risk. Yeah. You hear of bookkeepers in Australia that commit fraud. So it is a risk, and you'll do what you can. You probably can't fully protect against that ever. But if you hire the right people, you treat them well, you pay them well, and you have these systems and processes in place, then I think you'll mitigate most of that. I
think you're right. There's always going to be a risk, but the education piece around and for I guess the firms here in the US or wherever you are, UK, Australia, to make sure they understand that you are taking these precautions, still you are checking, doing these checks, etc. Which is which is important. But I think it's more important, well, especially for the time I spent in the US, that they need to hear that and they need to understand that. And I guess that's where you guys come in and can speak to them. And it's great to be at events like this to do that, right?
Yes.
So one of the things I'm seeing is outsourcing dying with AI, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we've got to ask the question, right? Because people are saying, obviously there's some people's mindset which AI will do everything for me, which we know is not correct, right? But we're looking at the likes of more counter softwares coming out like Digits, like Kick, and etc. They're taking a lot more AI first approach where you like CV0 and QuickBooks are building that in at a later date, like not later date, but later in their software because the journey they're on. Sorry. So is it like? What's your opinion? How do you answer that question? When we go, well, like, what's the point of outsourcing because of AI?
Yeah,
right.
Well, I get asked that all the time, and I do think a lot about AI. And I know it's going to impact the industry, and I'm not sure exactly how. But my take is at the moment that some of the processing will be done. So simple bookkeeping processing, AI will handle a lot of that. If you're doing month-end close, I'd say a lot of that will be automated, but you'll still need a person that can understand and check that. So they need to have the understanding to, is that right? How do you know? So I think there'll still be a role there, and there will still be client-facing interactions, and people want to talk to people for sales, onboarding, potentially to talk through their numbers, and then also for things like tax compliance.
Yeah,
you might look it up in ChatGPT, or you might have some agents doing things, but my prediction, which could be wrong, is that you'd still want someone else to actually sign or file the tax return. So if I have that in mind, then I think that some of the low-level offshore work will be automated.
Yeah.
But what I'm seeing in the space, after having been in it for 8 years, is that a talent is leveling up. So if you're a junior bookkeeper just clicking OK and zero, probably not going to have a job in 2 years' time doing that. But if you can do month-end close and controllership type work, then I'd say there's demand for that. How much? I don't know. And if you can interact with clients, then I think there'll be demand for that too. So I predict there'll still be global teams, and there'll be roles that are onshore, there'll be roles that are offshore, but there also will be a lot of automation happening.
And I guess still touching on AI, you obviously talk about recruitment. So part of your job is actually acting as kind of the people that help with recruiters, you said. How has AI affected that? Because are you finding that people that are applying to come in the Philippines and kind of want to be used and like join these firms, do you find you having to vet AI CVs more, AI training? Are you having to deal in that whole world of can this person actually do what I'm saying they do? Because if I'm going to use you guys, right, one of the perks is you're doing that vetting process, right? So I don't need to check that I've had 10 CVs that have come by AI in this slot. So are you guys having to learn that quickly and adapt to that?
Yes. I mean, I only hear ad hoc stories from the team because I'm more on the marketing side than the recruiting side, but I do hear stories of resumes that all look the same, language that sounds the same, and even prep interview questions where they've clearly thought about what the common questions are, and then it's a stock answer. But I know our team is pretty good at peeling back a few layers and delving deeper. But I think testing can be another problem. Of do you do live testing rather than sending someone some questions and then having it come back where they could have had some help? So they're things that we're thinking about. Also, how do we use AI to improve the recruiting process? So can we use it in a way to help vet people, do it at scale?
And I just wanted to touch on one thing. So obviously you said you're on the marketing side. So for me, from your experience, I've got an accounting firm. I've started using you guys. I've got maybe a couple of people I've got for the recruitment. How do I market my firm to stand out? Because obviously, like one of the perks is I've grown my firm. I've got more staff. But what's the perks of kind of using TeamUp? Can it be used within the marketing side of things? Can you market for me? Give some advice on that, maybe how that could work.
Well, as in, would we hire a marketer?
No. As in, how I've used me of things. Is that something I could use in my marketing to stand out as a firm? Like, I'm giving jobs to people in the Philippines. I'll make sure that the effort is there. Do you know, could that be used within, like, sorry if it's read that well, could that be used within my marketing as a firm? Have you seen that happen? Have you seen success stories in that? Or
I haven't seen it, but it's actually a really good point, because I think that marketing your firm to team members, that's actually another form of marketing that's important, because you're in the service business or the people business, and you want to attract and retain great people. And so how are you doing that? So at the moment, we're probably the connector point. So that the accountants in the Philippines they're kind of vetting as well.
Mm-hmm.
Getting on LinkedIn, having a look at the website, what's the reputation of this firm. So I think it is important not just to market to clients, but also to potential employees. So at least having about us and a team page and a little bit about what your values are and what you offer, I think that helps when you're being evaluated by potential team members.
I think it's really important. We see a lot of accounting firms, we have things like in the UK, we have companies that will, you plant trees or you employ ethically in the right. And I think that's a big question, if I'm going to outsource, I want to make sure I'm employing ethically. I'm not just doing it because it's cheap labor, right? So that's the whole conversation piece about it. And that's what I was kind of going for the market. Like, is that something to be proud of? Can you say, we've gone through things kind of feel like we know it's ethical, like, and use that in my marketing as an accounting firm. And I can see the point in that, if that makes sense. So
that's a great point. So I didn't know, you've made a really good point. So some firms are actually worried about, can I tell my clients that we have team members in the Philippines, and they try and keep it quiet. And instead I say, do the opposite. Mm-hmm. So at Beanages, our team page has everybody.
Yep.
It has our team in the Philippines. We write stories about them. We're proud of the team. That we're employing people that one of the guys on our team, the oldest brother of 5, he's putting his brothers and sisters through college by having a job with us. So if possible, we think it's great if firms can just promote that, to be transparent. Your team is global and you've got great people everywhere, and tell some of their stories.
Create capacity and scale with confidence through dedicated offshore professionals from the .HQ.
Amazing. Now, kind of going on both hats now, kind of what, at the moment, in the accounting and bookkeeping industry, you're over here, obviously you've got a good Australian knowledge and the UK. What is the biggest pain point you are seeing? What is the biggest kind of pain point that keeps coming up that you think, we need to improve on this in the next 12 months. We need to look at this. What from your side, all your experiences, what are you seeing?
Well, when I'm talking to accountants, I'm hearing AI overwhelm. So I feel like everybody, including me, feels like we're behind because it's moving so fast, and you might be experimenting and learning, but are we going fast enough? And not only learning the tools, building agents, trying to make things more efficient, but also trying to get our teams up to speed. Are they embracing new technology? Are we working in better ways? So that's what I'm sensing, that we know that the industry is about to change. I think firms will need to pivot, need to rethink through pricing and the product offering. So there's a lot of work and a lot of change happening, as well as trying to learn this new technology. So I'm feeling both a sense of overwhelm, but also excitement. That there's we don't know what's ahead the next couple of years, and there could be some great opportunities for firms that embrace this change.
Yeah. And especially specifically for TeamUp, we're sitting here in 12 months' time. Mm-hmm. What would be your kind of dream? We're talking again. What would be your dream kind of where you're at, what you're doing?
Yeah.
And like, is that making an impact in the US? What is that for you guys?
Well, we're proud of the work that we do, where we feel like we're creating great opportunities for people in the Philippines that are able to buy houses, put their brothers and sisters through college, have great opportunities, spend more time with their family. So we want to, instead of 500, I like to say we place 1,500 people next time I'm here. And then on the firm side, we work with a lot of founders or practice owners, so smaller firms. And then when they work with us, we hear stories that they're not working the 50, 60, 70-hour weeks because they've built a team that they can rely on, and they're enjoying some of their lifestyle and getting to their kids' events or getting fit and healthy because they've got more time to exercise. So if I could say that we had impacted that many accountants and firms this time next year, then I would feel proud of that.
That's one of the bigger, obviously, we spoke a little bit, being at the event here, we were around the hotel and we spoke a little bit. And I think one of the points that stood out to me was you said, like, you're able now to be free to travel. Like, you've come here, you've done 2 events in a row, you said you've freed up your time. And I think that's a real success story to kind of what you achieve of being ninjas and then going on to this, is that a lot of us want that, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of us love that idea of like, I build a business and I'll only be working 2 days a week while we're doing this. And the reality is a lot of us don't always get there. Mm-hmm. And we want to put our families first. And I think that's one of, just personally myself, one of the bigger kind of success stories I've seen in you from speaking to you, that you've actually managed to get somewhere like that and you can actually be living proof of that. So yeah, hoping next year that you've managed to, if you're back here with me, that we managed to get a few more firm owners doing that across the board. Right, so the biggest question we've actually been finishing with, which hopefully we can include, is we're currently in the middle of a World Cup. Mm-hmm. Aussie, are you supporting Aussie 2 minutes? So That's what your heart says. Who does your head say may win the World Cup?
Well, so I am disappointed to say I have not really been following it.
See, I feel very British because that seems to be the answer we've had of most people today.
And I actually love it. So I went to the World Cup in Brazil.
Okay.
What was that? 12 years ago. And then the World Cup, the Women's World Cup was in Australia just recently. So I went to some games.
It was over zero, if I remember rightly as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would just be taking a guess if
is there any team you've got another loyalty to in the respect of, family members or heritage?
well, I like Portugal because
so let's say Portugal.
Yeah.
So what team would you like to win the World Cup?
Portugal.
There we go. Good team. No, thank you so much for joining me on. I really appreciate that. So good luck with everything over the next 12 months.
Thanks for having me.